Coach Turby, welcome to the Laughing Stoic Buddha podcast.
Thank you for having me on.
Right on, man. Thank you. We've had a lot of conversations in spaces already on X, but we never really had the chance to do anything one-on-one, which I'm very honored and looking forward to the chance to ask you some personal questions, dive into your story. I've heard little glimpses of your past and your story, and I'm very intrigued. I know that you've been through a lot, and so I would love to dive into those stories, take out the lessons that you've gained from them and these experiences and all that, and share that with my audience today. So yeah, is that something that you're up for?
Absolutely, man. I'm ready for it. I'm excited as well. I know, like you said, we've talked a couple times on spaces and in messages and comments and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
uh, I'm glad we're having this interaction here.
Right on, man. I'll start off with this. From the very first time I heard your voice, first time I saw a video from you, your handle on social media is Coach Turby, and you really do embody the archetype of a coach. Your voice, your way of speaking is so motivational that like I can't ever not finish listening to you and be hyped up about like getting my shit together, fucking, doing the hard things, go to the gym, sit down and do the work, do the writing or whatever. So you've really embodied that. And we'll get into that a little bit about your history with coaching and, when you felt that as a calling and, whatever experiences you've had to lead up to that. But I wanted to lead with that. And I want to start with a question, which is, as a coach, to me, the worst coach is somebody that doesn't practice what they preach, right? The fat dietitian, right? The lazy gym trainer. So I want to ask you about your love-hate relationship with running.
I knew this was coming. Man, it's something that I really dislike, and it's surprising to people, even to myself, when I think about it, because a lot of people are like wowed by the distance. As a matter of fact, there's what church I think it's not the Mormon church. It's another type of church. I forgot what it is, but the ladies come around and they knock on the door, and my wife doesn't really like talking to them.
Yeah.
So they came in today and they were like, "Oh my God, you lost so much weight." And she hasn't seen me in like probably like a month or two.
Mhm.
And she's like, "Oh, your wife told me how much you've been running and how far you go, and you're running on the side of the highway and all this stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, I really don't like it." She's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." I only do it once a week, and literally, like, I, that day or the next day, it's like my knees hurt, my back hurts, my body is like, "Oh, why did you do this to me?"
Yeah.
Um, but the reason why I do it is for the mental aspect of it, like the mental warfare is what I call it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it prepares me for life, for anything that life throws at me. And I've been through a lot of difficult situations. And so I feel that if I am mentally prepared for anything, then nothing can throw me off my game. And the best way to do that is by doing something that makes me really, really uncomfortable and I really dislike. So hence why I run 15 miles a week.
Man, I love that, dude. Yeah. So again, this is the Laughing Stoic Buddha. We talk a lot about stoicism, and that's stoicism 101. Epictetus quote comes to mind: "We must treat the body rigorously in times of peace, so it doesn't betray us in times of war."
Yes.
And yeah, that sounds like exactly what you're doing. Is like finding the thing you hate the most. Like I personally hate cold showers. It's the worst minute of my life to have to sit in there. And there's a lot of benefits. Everyone talks about the physiological benefits, all that. I guess that's cool, but I do it because I hate it, and because I know that if I can grind through that first thing in the morning, and I
Mm.
can remind myself this is something you hate. It makes you uncomfortable, but you can survive it. And if you can survive this throughout the day, as things go bad at work, things go bad with the family, you get the flat tire, whatever goes along, you already had that victory, right? Early in the morning of knowing, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but I can survive this. Just like I can survive the cold shower, just like I can survive the 15-mile run, right? And yeah, so I love to hear that you have it. I love to hear when anyone has some sort of a stoic practice that's like really deep, like something you hate doing. It's very uncomfortable, but you do it for your mind. That psychological warfare with yourself, like that's amazing to hear, man. I love that.
Absolutely. And I don't like using the word hate, but
Yeah.
this, like, I hate money. I can't say that. There is that is the only reason I do it. And even while I'm on my run, I'm like, oh, why do I keep doing this to myself?
Yeah.
And I have to like remind myself. And then even that thought, it causes me to go back into like, okay, this is preparation. You must do this because life is hard
Yeah.
and it's not, a walk in the park. And because of that, you have to be mentally prepared for anything. And if my mind wants to quit, or if my body wants to quit, but my mind can overpower that, then I win the battle every
Yes.
single time. And so that's literally why I do it.
I love that, man. So speaking of exercise and all that, I also know I've read your pin post. I reread it recently to be refreshed on it. You lost a considerable amount of weight and really got your life in order. I mean, beyond losing the weight, you cut down or cut out completely drinking,
Yeah.
and a lot of other things. So talk to us a little bit about the pre and post Coach Turby, and what that journey of getting healthy was like.
Yeah. So about this is interesting because I don't believe in coincidences, right? So um 3 years ago, I want to say it was 3 years ago or two. No, it's 3 years ago. Um, a high school friend of mine reached out to me on Instagram, and he's like he was always a personal trainer, even back in high school. And he reached out to me. He was like basically selling me this food product. It's organic nutrition. And I was like, I don't know. And then at that time, like I was really overweight. My wife was pregnant, and um I was just not in the healthiest shape. I was in health one of the worst shapes of my life, actually. And so um I bought the program. It was like a 30-day cleanse, and not just like the product and the cleanse, but like he actually taught me about nutrition. And I was like, dude, like this is freaking amazing. And I remember like 15 days into the cleanse, I woke up one day and it was as if, those really, really thick, dark glasses that blind people wear?
Yes.
It was literally as if I was wearing those all my life and somebody had took them off. Like I
Yes.
woke up and my thoughts were like clear and quick, and I was able to communicate without a problem. And I woke up like really well rested. And I was like, this is weird. Like I've never felt this good before. And I called him and I was like, dude, I feel funny. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, what did you get a reaction to the product? Or what? I was like, I feel so good. Like I've never felt like this in my life. And he started laughing. He's like, yeah, it's supposed to happen like that because you've been eating junk for so long, and now you've cleansed your body of all of that, and you're just putting in like good stuff,
Yeah.
right? So since then I was like, wow, okay, cool. Organic nutrition is the way to go. And here in America, we're basically being poisoned.
Yes.
And uh, all the chemicals in the food, all the pesticides and all of that stuff, it's like it's really, really bad. And so from that time, I've been eating organic, and my diet has not changed. Like people ask me, like, "Oh, do you not eat carbs? Do you just do this?" Like I'm not into diets because a diet is something that you do temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make a lifestyle change, it's not temporary, right? So I made the decision to eat real food, healthy food, straight from the farm. You know, if it's meat, I want it to be the cleanest meat possible. And so I don't restrict myself like from sugars or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as it's real food, like I don't eat fast food, we barely eat out. I'm very simple that way. I think the simplest way to do things is the best, right? And so since then, I've just been eating healthy. And then oh, June, I remember June this year, um, I was supposed to have my summer body with abs and stuff, and like the months prior weren't I wasn't as active as I should have been. So I was like, you know what? That's when I started running,
Mm,
honestly.
nice.
I was like, okay. Or no. That's when I started the long runs. Cause so let's backtrack here. So my father passed in February of 2021, and he, unbeknownst to us, but he was dealing with like this terminal illness for like 40 years. And
Wow.
yeah, dude, it was crazy. He had like this blood condition that his blood would like thicken really, really fast. And it wasn't sickle cell, it was something like worse.
Mm,
And he was like I remember he would make like when I found out what it was, your mind
man,
starts
yeah.
to go back, and I'm like, you know what? He would always like literally live off of vitamin E pills, and he would say like if he didn't have his vitamin E, he would he would die. And I would always think like, oh, like you know, people say weird stuff all the time, but like he
Mhm.
was serious, and
Wow.
then he would make these concoctions all the time, and he'd be drinking this weird onion juice mixed with other stuff, and he'd always get me to try to drink it. So I wouldn't do it. But that's what kept him alive. And
Mm,
so when he passed, he had like 8 heart attacks. Um, and I was like, taken aback. And I was talking to my mom, and she was like, yeah, you should get your heart checked because, you were born with like a heart murmur and, a couple things and whatever. So I was like, huh, okay. I'm going to go and prepare my body to be the healthiest possible so that that doesn't happen. So when that happened, I committed to running 1 mile a day. And again, I hated it. I absolutely,
1 mile sucks when you hate running. I know.
it's horrible. Like I would honestly, it took me probably like 2 weeks to run the whole mile because I would like jog, walk,
Uh-huh.
jog, like complain to myself, like argue with myself out loud too, which is weird. Like I'm a very loud person. I'm loud. I don't care. But yeah, it is probably funny to watch now that I think. But
I'm a talk to argue with myself out loud when I'm outside too kind of guy. So I get it.
so I committed to running every day for a mile, and I did that for a year. And then after the year, I stopped. And that's probably why I regained the weight because like in
Hmm.
the beginning of this year, um, yeah, that was 2021. So 2022, oh shit, time flies, man.
Tell me about it.
2022, I stopped and then, gained some weight. And so at the beginning of this year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have that summer body ready. June came around, no summer body. So I was like, okay, we got to go back to this stupid running thing. I'm only going to do it once a week. So I did 1 mile on the Sunday, then I did two, then I did three, 4 and I just worked my way up, and I was coasting at 10 for a little bit. And then in September, I was like, you know what? Why don't I just keep going up? So I hit like 15 in October, and I've just been at like 15, 16 miles,
Wow.
depending on how I feel. But as far as like the stopping drinking and smoking, um, that was a hard one for me because I'm from Dominican Republic originally. Like I was born there,
Okay.
and it's part of our culture.
Yeah.
Like I grew up, every single party had alcohol. It doesn't matter if it was a 2-year-old's birthday, a baby shower, a wedding, like
Yeah.
whoever's birthday, we were getting drunk. We were partying hard, music, all that, dancing. It's fun, you know,
Of course. Yeah.
it's fun, but yeah, it's just part of my culture. And it's interesting because there was no like life event that happened where I was like, you know, this is too much. I'm too drunk. I gotta stop. Or actually, let me take that back. There was a bunch of those where I should have.
But you missed them.
And man, I remember, I think it was like 9 years ago. I woke up looking down on a cliff in a SUV that I had, and because I was drinking that night. I remember it was like the night after Thanksgiving, and I was driving. I drove this girl home, and then I was driving home myself, and I freaking woke up like the car had crashed through the fence, and it was like
Oh my God.
freaking cliff, and the bottom was like the highway. So like I freaking woke up. I jumped out of the car. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know what to do. I was all drunk. Um, called my mom, called my aunt, got up out of there, got out of that situation. And I remember telling myself, like, I gotta stop drinking. And it didn't happen.
Yeah.
There was another time um I was out drinking with my father-in-law, and I was driving. It was like a 20-minute drive home. And when I left the bar, I didn't feel, all that messed up. But somewhere along the way, I was tore up. And luckily my wife has like we share our location with each other.
Hmm.
And she sent her 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 father-in-law to come get me. And dude, when he woke me up in the car, like the car was on, I was like just off the side of the road. There was like throw up everywhere on the car, like outside. So like if a cop would have drove by, like
Yeah.
that
Done.
would it for me.
Yeah.
And even then I was like, oh man, I gotta stop drinking. And I didn't.
Mm.
But when was it? I think last year, 2022. It had been a year after my father passed. And one day I was just like, you know what? I don't need this anymore. And I just stopped drinking.
Wow.
Like, I just stopped. It was out of the blue. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't even hard for me to do. It was like I thought about it and I was like, what's the point? Like I'm just gonna get drunk. I've been getting in trouble every time I get drunk. I'm spending money that I don't need to spend.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm like having a good time with my wife. My wife doesn't drink.
Mm.
So what's the point? You know?
Yeah. Finally outgrew it or whatever.
Yeah.
You reached a
Yeah.
point where you basically seen it wasn't serving you anymore.
Yep.
And I love to hear that, because you hear a lot of and like recovered people, Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever, that you have to hit your bottom, right? And those bottoms can be rough. They can be incarceration, they can be DUIs, they can be, manslaughter, all this kind of stuff. And It's always refreshing. I have a few people in my life, I've heard similar stories to you, where they had all these close calls, and there's a lot of, like you said, there's culture, there's history, so much wrapped up in drinking, the culture of drinking. And it's cool that you matured to the point where it was no big event. It was just like, hey, this isn't serving me, and the fact that you're able to drop it and keep it off is amazing, man. It's very commendable. I love to hear that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Right on, man. So I have a lot of questions. The thing that stood out to me was when you said that your dad had a terminal illness for 40 years that
Yes.
he didn't share with you,
With
um,
anyone,
with anyone. Wow. Not
like,
wife, kids, nobody.
so my mother knew, but she didn't know the extent of the disease.
Mm.
And like we found out after he passed when we looked it up because
Wow.
we got the autopsy and we spoke to the doctors, and she was telling us like, oh yeah, he had this thing, and she gave us the name in Spanish, and then we translated it and we talked to the doctor and he confirmed it. And I was like, wow. And I'm not 40 yet,
Yeah.
so I'm the oldest of his kids. So basically he kept himself alive to have grandchildren, see his grandchildren, and
Wow.
have an entire life,
Yeah.
which is like amazing to me.
Yeah, and he went to some crazy extents from what you're saying. The vitamin E pills, the the onion juice, all that kind of stuff. I'm guessing all blood thinner type stuff that ways to, yeah, really. That's really cool, man. So part of this podcast, again, on the Stoic side of things, it's also big in Buddhism, is thinking about mortality, thinking about, especially. I would like to ask him. It's personal, but I know you can roll with it. The passing of your father, what that was like for you, reflecting on your father yourself. You have how many kids?
4,
4. Wow, that's amazing. Boys, how many boys? How many girls?
2 and 2.
2 and 2. Fantastic. That's so cool. I got 2 girls myself. How old's the oldest?
Awesome. So my the oldest is 10. She's our
Oh,
daughter,
mine
and
too. Mine's turning 10 next week. My oldest daughter.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Happy
right.
advance
Thank you.
to her.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So our oldest is 10, and then we have a 6-year-old boy, a 5-year-old boy, and we have a 2.5-year-old daughter.
Awesome, bro. Okay, so in the light of your father passing, in the light of the fact that you're a father yourself, you're a family man, did it reframe your view of your own life, your own mortality, your own being a father and all that? How, what were some of the lessons? And it takes time to process this. This isn't the kind of thing that normally happens in a day or in a week, but there's been some time. How has that sort of affected you here today, thinking about, your own lifetime?
Man, it's it's it actually birthed Coach Turby.
Wow.
I didn't become a coach until after he passed.
Oh,
And
wow. That was gonna be my next question, so we got 2 and 1. We
yeah,
got the birth of Coach Turby. Wow.
yeah. So when he passed, this is crazy. So he was supposed to come see me in December, and so he passed in February, right? He was supposed to come see me in December, and he hadn't met our youngest daughter yet, like in person. Like they FaceTimed a lot. She knew who he was. They would talk, but he hadn't like physically seen her. And um, I remember New Year's, he caught COVID for the second time. And the first time he was in the hospital really, really bad. And like people were calling me like, man, your dad is in the hospital. You need to go see him because it's not looking good. And that was the first time. And then the second time, he was like working, like acting like nothing happened. My mom was in DR, so he was like home by himself. They still live in New York. I grew up in New York City, so they were still in New York. I'm in Texas, And I remember after the ball dropped, that was probably one of the last times I really got drunk. And I was drinking by myself and I was just listening to music. And dude, I started crying for like 3 hours and I was
Mm,
mourning him.
yeah.
And I was like, I remember begging God to give me more time with him.
Yeah.
It's like, man, like this can't happen. He needs to meet his granddaughter and just all this stuff. And it was crazy because I got all of that emotion out. And I really felt like he was dying. And luckily, it didn't happen at the time. But 2 months later, that's when it happened. And so we all went up to New York. And what really, really like struck me, even to this day, was his funeral. Like hundreds of people, or maybe not hundreds, but like probably like over 100, almost 200 strangers, like not from my family, my mom's family, people that I've never seen before showed up to honor him.
Wow.
And I was talking to all these people, and they were just telling me all the stuff that he taught them. And mind you, like my dad was a taxi driver for, I don't know, from like 96 to, or 95, 1995, all the way up until 2005, 2006
In New York City?
in New York City.
That's a crazy job, bro. Taxi driver in New York City for a decade?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
almost he would tell me like he got robbed at gunpoint
I'm sure, yeah.
times, got into really bad accidents where he tells me that he doesn't know how he lived.
Mm,
And then after that, he became a truck driver. So these are two professions that don't, you wouldn't think of like, okay, this guy is a mentor,
mhm.
but I know when he was a truck driver, he'd always be on the phone. So at his funeral, so many people, man, like it was crazy to me. Like so many people came to honor him. And one of the hardest parts was having his phone because me and him have a similar voice. And he passed 4 days before his birthday. So, and the funeral was the day after his birthday.
Yeah.
So, like that whole weekend, that whole week, so many people calling his phone to wish him happy birthday. And then I get on the phone and they think it's him,
Yeah.
it's
Wow.
me, and I have to break the news to them. And I don't even know these people. And
Yeah.
they were like crying, bawling. And the thing it's like people from everywhere. I remember talking to this lady from Kansas. I didn't know I never heard from her. And she was like crying, like hysterically crying,
Mm.
as if as if that was her father. And that shit was hard, dude. Like that was honestly one of the hardest parts. But going
I
back,
can only imagine, man, meeting complete strangers for the first time and seeing that kind of emotional reaction,
yeah,
over your father, and it's a stranger to you. That's trippy, man. That could have a huge impact. I could see that being life altering.
yeah. And they were like telling me like how good of a person he was, how lucky I must have been to have him in my life. And it was tough because like me and him, we didn't always have a good relationship. Like we only had a good relationship for the last, I'd say, 5 to 8 years, because, or no. I wouldn't say that. Maybe like 10 years. Because like when I was a kid, he was always working. Um, and I mean, he would take me to the park on the weekends. Like he did his best. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he did his absolute best, but he worked a lot. He was an immigrant. My mom was an immigrant. They barely spoke English. Um, and so he had to provide. And then when I was 16, I graduated high school and I found out I had a little brother in DR that
Oh,
he
wow.
kept from me. So
Di-
like,
Different mom, I'm guessing.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And from that point up until like my 20s, like we did not talk. We
Mm,
barely spoke. And so, like when I became a father, like me and him became best friends.
yeah.
So that it was, I'm grateful that we got to, you know, rekindle that relationship, and we had a great relationship, until the end. But yeah, back to, his funeral, like all these people saw him as a mentor. He was part of this, I don't know if they call themselves a church, but it's a Gnostic belief.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. I'm actually familiar with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the entire congregation came down to honor him, and a whole bunch of people. And then at that time, I had just started a book club. And it was crazy because like it was like a week after he passed, and I was like doing book club meetings again, and people were like, yo, if you want to take some time off. I'm like, nah, man, like I started this thing. I want to do this thing. And from then people were like, yo, you should be a coach. Like you got a lot to say. You got a lot of energy. You have a lot of wisdom and a lot of good advice, and you keep people accountable and all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? Why not? If my father could do it as a truck driver,
Yeah.
he could mentor people, then why can't I do it? And then figure out a way to make money. And then that was another thing. When he passed, his life insurance had lapsed because of COVID. He had lost his job. And so we went up there and I went into debt. Like I thought we were financially okay, but we were not ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, the trip alone, just getting up there and back was like $4,000 or $5,000
Yeah.
because there's six of us, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you have to travel. And then funeral expenses, clothes, food, this, that. It was a lot. So I was like, man, I need to figure this out. And I decided to start coaching. And at the time, I was part of uh, it was an NFT community. It was all entrepreneurs, and so I made an offer. I had like 40 people respond to me.
Wow.
Uh, I ended up coaching like 17 people for free for like a month, and then the next month I made my first $1,000. And I was like, holy shit, this is real. Like,
Yeah.
what? And yeah, I've decided to do that. And I love that. Like that's my jam, man. Like I love helping people, connecting with people. My favorite thing is to see, like, is to watch someone go through their epiphany.
Yeah.
Like I'll ask a question and they'll be like, huh. And their eyes light up, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Whatever that thought was, you better write that shit down. You better record it right now. Like, we need to get that, take action on that. But yeah, like,
That's what you live for, those moments right there.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Absolutely love it.
Right on, man. Yeah, I'm a big advocate. I talk on this podcast a lot about people finding and pursuing their callings, and when you see it, like I see it in you. Your calling is to be a coach because it's one of those things you can't fake. The passion, the love, just it shines through somebody's face, and so I'm always honored to have anybody on here that has found their calling. And I have a particular thing because I've came to it somewhat later in life. I was like 32 by the time mine has been writing. And before I finally came around to it, I ignored that shit for decades and it just wouldn't let me go. Right. And finally I got my ass down. I started writing and it was so many of those moments for myself and then moments from readers responding with like, holy shit, this is the most touching thing I've ever read. You moved me to tears. And I was like, oh, like you get that confirmation of like, this is it. This is what I knew I should have been doing. And then the universe, life rewards you with those reactions. And I love to see that you live for that reaction in your clients, in your students. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's inspiring for me. I'm like, holy shit, like I'm doing something right in the world,
Yes. Yes.
And that's why I love what I do, because like growing up, my parents would always tell me like, follow your dreams. You can be whoever you want. You can do whatever you want to do. But they weren't necessarily doing that because they had to pay bills. They had a family to take care of. They did their best. They didn't find the opportunity. And I remember my dad always blaming his father, like, oh, if he would have paid, I think he said like it was like the equivalent of $7 for him to go to medical school, that he would have been a doctor. I'm like, sure, right? You didn't chase your dream, like,
Yes.
so for me, like I tell my kids that, and I need to be an example of that myself.
100%. Yeah.
Because that was the thing for me. Like, you're not living it, so
Yeah.
don't tell me to
Yeah.
live it if you're
Yeah.
not living
Show, don't tell, right? They're
it.
going to lead by your example, but as opposed to whatever you tell them, whatever you preach to them, they're learning by watching you. And that's really cool that you got that and you understand that you're not just doing this for yourself, you're not just doing this for your clients, you're doing it for your kids, which is, the coolest part.
Yeah, man. And just to touch on that, my son today, he was like, I know why you're working so hard. And I was like, what you talking about? Right? Like, you're 5. What do you mean? You know why I'm working so hard? He's like, yeah, because you gotta pay, you gotta make money for this and for that and for this. And because you want to take us to Disneyland, don't you? I was like, is that your way of asking?
You got a little salesman on your hands, bro. You got a little lawyer.
I was like, you're right. You're right. He's like, yeah, I know. I'm smart. I'm like, "Yep, you got
He's smarter than he even knows, bro. That's
it.
inception right there.
For real." He's like, I was like, what?
That's awesome, bro. So I'm really interested in the story of how you got from the Dominican Republic to New York. I've heard little glimpses and spaces of you telling this story, but if you give us a proper story, what age that you came over and what the experience was like.
Yeah. So I was really young. It wasn't like anything glamorous. Um, I came on a plane. You know,
At what age?
I was 6.
Okay.
So I remember first grade in DR. Totally different from here. Like, teachers, you smack us on the hand with rulers and
Oh
stuff.
shit.
For real,
Old
like
school.
I remember recess. Um, man, these bricks must have been, I don't know what these bricks were made out of, but I remember in recess, like there was a staircase that the boys would like pile up bricks and like break them and stuff. Like, dude, it was like, now that
Wild.
I think about it, I'm like, I would never send my kids there.
Yeah.
We had a tree that we would climb up. I remember we had to wear uniform and the girls wore skirts. So I remember even at first grade, like I'd be under the tree looking up girls, like, but yeah,
The Wild West, man.
yeah. But yeah, I was 6 years old. So when I came over, I was in second grade. They put me in bilingual class, and then third grade we switched schools, and I was supposed to be with the bilingual kids, but for some reason they made a mistake in the administration or whatever, and they put me in an all English class, and I was bullied.
Mm.
Um, my accent was horrible. Um, and I struggled to like make friends.
Yeah.
And then in fourth grade, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be smart this time. And my best friend was the biggest black dude in the class. Biggest. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be friends with the tallest dude.
Good call.
I was short, so I'm like, this
Yeah.
guy's my best friend. Um, but yeah, and then ultimately being an immigrant uh was a big part of my story because I was actually in immigration jail 7 years ago for a year. And I was in New York. I had my own car service business, so followed in my father's footsteps.
Yeah.
Um, but I felt like I was doing it better because I remember he was working like with other companies and I started that way, but then I worked my way up to like a black car,
Mm.
luxury vehicle, and I had my own clients. And then I had this one guy, he was like taking stuff up state or whatever. Like I had nothing to do with his stuff, but I got wrapped into his investigation, get charged with conspiracy, which basically means that you know what this person is doing and you didn't go to the authorities and tell
Mm.
them. So I get charged with conspiracy. I get a slap on the hands because they know I have nothing to do with it. But because I'm not a citizen, immigration is like, hold up, you're going back to DR, buddy.
Yeah.
And so in that, like that whole ordeal, I ended up, basically behind bars for a year.
You had your daughter at this time, right?
Yeah.
7 years ago? Oh my God, man. That's intense.
And my wife was pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. Like our dude. So Father's Day, she told me the news on Father's Day, which is in June, right?
Mm.
At the end of June. And I went in July 12th,
Oh my God.
5
Good.
days before my birthday.
I can't imagine, man. I can't imagine. Wow.
It was like the first 2 months were like the worst months of my life, honestly. Like I was depressed. I was like suicidal. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to do anything. And it got pretty bad. Um, my dad, he actually sent me Siddhartha book. Siddhartha.
Wow.
I read.
Very on brand for the podcast. How did you like it?
I love that book.
Nice. I love to hear that, man.
He sent me that. He sent me Law of Attraction,
Mm.
which is it's crazy because I still that copy. I'm trying to see where I have it on the shelf, but that copy is the only book that I have from that year.
Mm.
That the only book I came home with out of that year was that book.
Yeah.
But yeah, I um started reading the Bible a lot, read it through twice. I started
Wow.
now I would write letters to my wife every day.
Yeah.
Um
So those are all good calls, man. Like when you're locked up, you got to have some sort of a routine to keep yourself sane and to keep meaning in your life too. And to hear that you're reading the Bible, to hear that you're writing a letter every single day, I think is an amazing call.
yeah, honestly, I would not be who I am today without that year.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I again, I don't believe in coincidences, so like I'm grateful that that happened to me because I thought I was hot shit. I mean, like I'm an immigrant. I'm in New York City. I got my own car service business. I hit six figures for the first time ever right before that happened.
Yeah.
Right before that happened.
Wow.
Got this white girl, which is the Dominican dream, to like be with a white girl with blonde hair.
You're killing it, bro. You're
Blue
living
eyes.
the American dream, dude, for an immigrant.
Dude, it was like I was like on top of the world. And I thought I had it all figured out, but I was drinking, I was smoking, I was not living a healthy lifestyle. I was not a good person at that time. And so that year really, really straightened me out. Like I learned all the habits that I have to this day, I learned during that year. The visualization, the meditating, the working out every day, the reading, the writing, um, all of that. The affirmations, I didn't even know what affirmations were until that year.
Mm.
So like those are the 6 things that I still do every single day. And for me, that that helps me know like I'm getting better every day, regardless of what happens in the world, regardless of what happens in my situation with, in my business, in my marriage, with my parenting, with my kids, or my other relationships with friends or family. Like I know if I do those 6 things every single day, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Um, so
I love
yeah,
to hear that, man. It's very stoic. I have a very similar take too. I meditate every single day. I journal, I write. Like those are separate things. Journaling is writing to myself, writing is writing to an audience, right? I meditate, I journal, I go for a walk, I exercise. And like I love it. The very stoic thing about it is you're controlling what you can control. Like you said, regardless of what the outside results are, the world is crazy. So much is outside of your hands. But the one thing you can do is put aside the time to do those things that give your life these guardrails and give you a direction, right? So the entire day can suck. You can have terrible business, news. You can have family, tragedies. But if you're handling the little piece that you can handle and control, it's a victory for the day. So I love to hear, and also the fact that you did all those while you were in immigration jail. It makes me think of that, necessity is the mother of invention. Like you do these things because you needed it to survive, to keep yourself sane, to keep yourself alive, right? And for a lot of people to make a big change in your life with your diet, with your lifestyle, with exercise, with business, with work, sometimes it really takes like being fed up with being fed up or like just needing it because if I don't do this, it's literally going to be I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. I'm not going to be able to keep myself sane. I'm not going to be able to, so I love that you had this transformation from this lowest point, this horrible thing that nobody wants to live through, and that you took these incredible pearls out of it that are still these gems that are still serving you to this day is just such a great thing to hear. It's like it's again very stoic. You found the piece that you can control. You saw that it worked for you, and you're continuing to. Yeah, you could have gotten out and just gone right back to the lifestyle. Oh, cool! Now I can drink and party and this and that, and I'm
and
sure
I
there was
did.
yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, I'm sure there was some of that, but regardless, if you were still, writing and reading and exercising and doing those things, those affirmations, then it was a slow trajectory to get to the point where you're at here today, where you're far past all that stuff. So I love that, man. Great share.
Yeah, man, one of the most peaceful days that I've ever had in my life was in jail.
I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah.
So I I know I'm gonna continue those habits to the day I'm gone.
Yeah, that's cool, man. You found a little peace in that stillness and silence, and you've taken it out here in your regular life too. And that's cool, dude. That's something that I can only wish, our listeners and anybody that out there can find that for themselves too. Such a personal thing, right? It's not something that can be given. We got to find it for ourselves.
And for everyone listening, like don't wait to find that thing. Like there we the funny thing about coaching, it has led me to a realization that most people, not all, but most people already know what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
And they, for a myriad of reasons, can't stick to it. And so that calling, that thing that that you hear, that from the inside, that like, man, I probably should be doing this. Do it. Don't wait. Don't put it off, because the more you put it off, you're just putting off that next best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And the more you get better, the more your life gets better. So,
So I'm talking about, bro. You're a natural born coach. And that line right there is enough to get everybody to go do that fucking thing you already know you should be doing today. Stop putting it off. Life is temporary. Life is short. Start leveling up now. Yeah, and the reciprocal nature of it, like, whatever that thing, if it's exercise, you've been putting it off. Once you start doing that, it's not just that you're going to lose the weight and get healthy, like you were saying. Like, you're going to take the shades off. Like, all
yes,
of a sudden, you're going to have energy. You're going to think clearer. You're going to show up better in your relationships. You're going to show up better in your business. Like, it has this good just breeds more good, right? Discipline breeds more discipline. And so the best thing you can do is get out of your head and thinking about it, get out of planning about it, get out talking about it, be about it, start doing something. And it just builds. And the compounding effect of good discipline and good action is just, there's no reason to wait. Start today.
exactly. And you said something that's really important. I just want to highlight it. Be about it. And a lot of times we strive to like have things in life or to
Mm.
do things in life. And that's not where we need to start. Like, a lot of people set their goals on, okay, I want to have, this career, or have this house, or this car, or this amount of money. Or some people say, I want to do this in my life. I want to do that. But when you focus on becoming that person, that's when it starts. Because when you think about being a writer, if you identify as a writer, what does a writer do? Well, a writer
Right.
writes, right?
Yes.
Right. And then a writer has all of the accolades of being an author, or, whatever things that come with being a writer. If I want to have a good relationship with my children, I need to focus on being the best father I could be. Because if
Yes.
I focus on that, then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell my kids I love them. I'm going to teach them in the right ways. I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to do all the things that a great father would naturally do. And then I will get all of the results that come with that.
I love
So
it, dude.
focusing on becoming that person, and that's when everything starts to change and things start to get easier, right? Because if you're an athlete, then you don't have to struggle with working out or training or preparing or whatever it is, because that's just who you are.
That's who you are. Yep.
So all of the things that come with being an athlete, they just naturally come to you.
Yeah, I love it, man. It makes me think of James Clear. I don't know if you've read Atomic Habit, but he talks about this too. The idea that just what you said, you don't want to, if the goal is to publish a book, that's not a good goal. The goal is to be a writer, right? And what does a writer do? Just like you said, they write, and they write every day. So if you focus on that, you can, and then he talks about the idea of choosing an identity and then casting votes for it, right? So if the identity is you're a writer, every time you write, you cast a vote for it. And you cast enough of those votes, eventually you're going to believe it, right? You're going to adopt that identity. And it goes for anything. Like you said, being an athlete, somebody's not, if the goal is to get a gold medal in the Olympics, right? And you're a decade away from that, it's going to be discouraging. You're not going to, but if the goal is to become thinking of, I don't know, a gymnast, right? Yeah, an athlete, right? Whatever it is, to become that athlete, then every single day you show up and you put in the work, you're casting another vote for that identity. And then who knows when the critical mass will hit? There's no magic number, but all of a sudden one day you'll go, holy shit, I'm an athlete. Holy shit, I'm a writer. Holy shit, I'm an entrepreneur. And yeah, and so I love your philosophy on that. I'm glad to hear that that's what you're coaching and sharing with your clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we are, man, it's almost been an hour. This flew by, dude. We really covered a lot of ground. I got to hit my main Laughing Stoic Buddha questions for you. So I got two very big questions and they're a little vague, but I know that you're going to have great answers for these. I leave them vague on purpose to give you creative license to really go wherever you want with it. So we're going to start with the Stoic side of things. The
Right.
Stoics talk a lot about living the good life. And the way that I like to frame it is looking over your entire lifetime. Let's say you live a happy 100 years, healthy years, and you look back over your life.
11 is my
Well,
goal.
111? Okay, cool. That's a good solid goal. All right. You got to become the kind of identity of a longevity man, right? Eat well. You're doing it right. You're eating well. You're running. You're doing all the right things. You got community and love. So, okay, let's say you're 111 years old. You're looking back over your life. What kind of a life would you have to lead to say that you lived a good life?
That I fulfilled my purpose in being the example for my children, that when you set your mind to want to be someone, you go and do it. Simple. I want to be a coach. I became a coach. I wanted, and like I've been doing this all my life. I wanted to be a barber. I became one of the best barbers in downtown Brooklyn. Then I managed the shop and I was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to, be an entrepreneur and have my own thing. Um, and so I started the car service business, right? I started with Uber and Lyft and all these companies. And I was like, I don't like this. I want to go on my own. I did that. Then I decided to become a coach. I did that. So for me, it's to be the example, not just for me, but for the next generation, to
Yeah.
prove to everyone that knows my story that if I can accomplish these things, like this immigrant right here can do it,
You got no excuses.
anybody can do it. There's no excuses. Like
Yeah.
English was my second language. I was bullied. I was short. I had like I was socially awkward, and I went out and I accomplished whatever I wanted to accomplish. I worked hard at it. I failed a lot
Yeah.
and I learned a lot and I went out and did it. And that's it. Like that's the good life, to be the example to my kids and spend most of my time with them, which
Yeah.
that's what I do. So,
I love that, man. Yeah, it sounds like you're living your good life now already, and you're building it. I love two things about that. One is being honest with yourself about what you want to do in this lifetime and not letting self-doubt or lack of self-confidence, whatever, get in the way. Like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how to be the most badass barber. I'm going to figure out how to run my own business. I'm going to figure out how to be a coach. So number one, going for it, right in line with the becoming, instead of setting the goal and hoping for it one day. It's becoming it now. So I love that. And even more so because it's big in my life too, the idea of setting the example for your kids, because it's not just about you. You feel this obligation to be that example for the kids, this family that you love, and really the whole world. Anyone that comes across you and hears your story and gets invested in your story can do the exact same thing. You may just be that light that shines on the fact that, holy shit, like you said, if Coach Turby can do it, I can do it. I just real quick, I wanted to share. So I live in the Bay Area here in California, and I've noticed most of my friends are immigrants
mhm.
or even refugees, and it was one of those things I didn't really do on purpose. I just sort of one day noticed, like, wow, most of my friend group is either immigrant or first generation. Their parents were immigrants, right? And I'm not. My parents are both born here. My grandparents were both born here. I was like, what is it about immigrants that I get along with so much, or first generation people? And I think what it is there's this the reason I don't get along with people that are born and raised here in America as much is there's this entitlement to like they feel like they deserve something, right? This is talked about a lot, but this is something very experiential for me. They feel like they're owed something. And there's a lot of this like, sort of hatred towards American culture, and American culture has its problems and its history and all that. But when I talk to immigrants and first generation people, there's this sense of responsibility that I really resonate with, that I want to pass along to my kids too, that you have an opportunity in this country and in this time that most of the world, and particularly most of the world throughout human history, has not. So with that opportunity, there's a responsibility to make more of yourself, to not just coast by, to not just get by, but to actually build something great, because you're given the tools, you have the chance to do it. And if you don't, then you're sort of letting like yourself down, you're letting your family down. You're like letting all of like humanity down in a way, because you're not becoming the most that you can become. And I just wanted to share that because I feel a lot of that with you. It's something that I feel a lot with my immigrant and first generation friends, of like, we have this opportunity, we have a responsibility to fulfill it. Like, and if we don't, it's on us.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that because for everyone listening right now, like everyone, like the world has opened up and we
Yes.
all have that opportunity that you're just talking about.
Yep.
Like it is now worldwide. Because,
Yes.
dude, I've been connecting with people from all over the world these past few months, especially on X, on Spaces. Like everyone has an internet connection,
Yep.
or not. I don't want to say everyone, but if you can hear this,
Yeah.
then you have the internet connection, right? Which means you have the opportunity to accomplish your dreams. Like we now live in a world where like you're in the Bay Area, I'm in Texas, we're looking at each other, we're having a conversation right now as if we were sitting across the table from each other.
Yeah.
So like everyone has this opportunity to create wealth, to create purpose, to create an impact in the world in the way that they want to do it. Like I've coached people who are artists. That's what they love to do. And they don't even have to be like in the same country to sell to someone in another country. Like you got NFTs, you have all this new technology that like an artist is able to be famous across the world. A musician can do the same thing. A writer can do the same thing. A podcaster, speakers, mentors. So many people have the opportunity to impact the world. And so now I feel like immigrants have an advantage,
Yes.
honestly, because of that responsibility. It's like, yo, we know back at home, like I got family members that their electricity goes out once or twice a day.
Hmm.
There is no hot water, right? Like
Yeah.
we have an apartment in Dominican Republic, and when I went there, you have to like flick on a light to turn on the hot water.
Wow.
And so like, and then you gotta wait.
Uh-huh.
It's like you gotta turn on the light, you gotta wait. And if you are trying to shower at the wrong time of the day, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have any electricity, there's gonna be no TV, no Wi-Fi, nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like now we have this opportunity, and if you don't take advantage of that opportunity, like you're doing a disservice to yourself, to your
Mm.
family, to your future generations.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that to that because like now is the time for us to really really make an impact on the world.
I totally agree, man. I was thinking earlier when we were talking about the impact that your dad had, just having a phone and driving a truck. Imagine if he had X, right? Imagine the amount of reach that he could have had. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. Okay. So we covered the Stoic side, the good life. You had a beautiful answer for the good life. I'm going to go to the Buddhist side, which is more just the Eastern side, and ask even more, a bigger question that's even more vague. And I've heard you kind of talk on this before. I'd like to hear your answer on it. So the question, you could call it the God question. We could call it the reality question. But I like to just say this. What is this? What's going on? What's reality? Why are we here? What are we doing?
So that's a really good
Told you it was a big question, man. We don't go light around here.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. So I believe I was put on this in this reality, in this existence for a purpose. And we all were. And every single person that can hear me, even the people that cannot hear me, you are the best, the absolute best at your thing. I don't know what that thing is. You know what that thing is, or you may not know yet what that thing is. But our purpose is to explore the fullest expression of that thing, whatever that thing is. If it's writing, like you're here to be the best writer in your niche that you can possibly be. If you're a coach, you're here to be the best possible coach and mentor that you can be. If it's just being a mom, like you are here to be the very best mother to those kids that you can be, because you don't know what those kids are going to do. And somebody says this always. He says, if I want to impact 1 million people, I don't have to go out and look to impact 1 million people. I might just impact the one person who impacts the million. Yes. So, and you can't do that. And I'd add to that, you cannot do that unless you are expressing to the fullest extent your purpose, your thing, whatever that thing is. So yeah, that's the purpose for us all being here. And reality is perspective, which is amazing, because like we can literally just be like, okay, I'm here to do this, and then 5 years later we can change our mind, and then 5 minutes later we can change our mind. And life is whatever we can make, whatever we make it. Like I'm sure you've heard the concept of like the car accident, right? And people are on 4 different corners, and the 4 people view the same car accident, but from 4 different perspectives. So they have 4 different stories on the same event. That's what life is, right? We're all in this together. A lot of us have similar goals. We're wanting similar things. Most people want to have a good life. They want to be financially free. They want to, have great relationships. They want to have great health. And it's all perspective. All of reality is perspective. It's what you make of it. And to where some people might see things even that I've went through, or gone through things that I've went through, and been like, man, that sucked. That was horrible. Da 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 da. But if I can see it as like, no, this was actually a good thing because of XYZ, right? Why does that happen? It's perspective. And we can all change perspective like that.
Yes.
So that's my long-winded answer. We're here.
That's a great answer, man.
Whatever perspective we think that this reality is for. But I think it's to fulfill that purpose, that one amazing thing that we're here for.
I love that, bro. It's a very good coach answer, and it really is. But it really is in line very much with the way that I view it too. I think we're all unique expressions from the same source, right?
Yes.
And underline their unique, right? That and it's like there's an obligation to express that uniqueness in its fullest expression. And that's what I heard in your answer. And also the idea of perspective. I like to say that we're meaning making machines, right? We make the meaning out of every event in our life. Every perspective we take, it's empty. And then we give it the meaning that we do. And like you said, this horrible event that happened to you, being incarcerated, you could give that any meaning. You could consider yourself a victim. You can consider yourself, the system's broken and you're going to rebel against the system and this and that. But instead, you made the meaning of I have these practices in my life. I'm reading. I found a certain peace, and I had this reset that when I go back out into the world, I'm now going to, have this whole new perspective, this whole new mission and purpose for my life because I understand how precious this time with my family and with my kids and just the fact that I have the freedom to have my own business, to make an impact on the world, all these things. So that's a decision you made. You decided to make that meaning out of it. And so you're talking about perspective and reality being perspective. I agree. And I think that extra little twist on it is like the meaning you decide to make out of your perspective and the meaning and purpose you decide to put behind it. So love that, man. Great answer.
Thank you, thank you. And I love what you added to it. Like we're all, and I wrote that down. We're all unique expressions from the same source. Man, that is so. I mean, I know we're going over the time, but like, dude, that right there is so good because I believe like we are all one drop of water from this vast ocean.
Great
And
analogy.
vast ocean is God, call it the universe, there's many different beliefs, but we're all from the same source.
Yes.
Source is the energy of love. I believe we're all made from love. And so like we are here to express the fullest extent of our little droplet. We're just that little droplet. But we're all so much alike because we're all from the same ocean,
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
actually I wrote that down.
Right on, man. I'm honored. And that goes back to your answer on the good life too, is if you are that one drop, that unique drop, and you're expressing that love to its fullest extent, all the other little droplets are seeing that as an example. Like your kids, your wife, your fans, your friends, your whole extended network is going, well, shit, if that droplet can fully express its love and creativity, it gives them the right to do the same. Yeah.
Yes, that right there. And that's why I'm so open with sharing like my difficult times and the
Yeah.
hard shit that I go through and that I went through because like I firmly believe like I never thought I would be in this position. Like I didn't. When I was right before I got incarcerated, I thought that was like I was on top, dude. Like I made it. That's it. I don't have to do nothing else.
Yeah.
I got kids. I'm raising the kids. I married this, or I wasn't married yet, but like I got this white girl. Like, yeah, I'm set. I got a
Yeah.
business. I got a family. I'm good. That's it. And so, like, if I can make something of my life, anyone can do it.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. So, okay, great answers to the two deep questions. Now, this third one's gonna be a little easier. We like to end since it gets a little heavy. We're gonna end on a light note. So, since this is the laughing Stoic Buddha, we're gonna end with some laughs. Um, I would like to hear a story of a time that you've laughed really hard.
And so, a time that I've laughed really, really hard. I have 4 kids, so they do all sorts of funny stuff and all sorts of stupid funny thing. But I would say my favorite is like tickle time because like they're like tickle me, tickle me, tickle me. And yo, like my boys get like really rough. And then my daughter, the youngest one, she's like 2.5. So she's trying to like wrestle with them and wrestle with me. And like they try to tickle me, but they can't because I'm the tickle monster. So they can't have that, right? But that really like fills me up, and something that made me laugh. It happened today, a couple hours ago, right before they went to bed. Is like we were doing the tickle thing, the tickle mosh thing. They're like, Dad, tickle me, tickle me, tickle me. And my daughter takes off her diapers and she starts around. She's like, booty, booty, booty. Exactly. And no, and get this. And then my 5-year-old, he's like, oh, I'm gonna pull my pants down. I say, you better not, boy. You too old. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that. Like
Fucking kids are the best, dude.
they they are, man. They crack me up. I love them. They keep me going, man. So
Yeah, yeah.
that
That's beautiful, dude. It's a beautiful moment. Tickle time is huge in my family too. I do this thing with the girls all the time where I go stick them up, right? And then they stick their hands up, and then I tickle them, and they know it's coming.
I love that. That's awesome.
And they'll start kind of half putting their hands up. I'm like, stick them up, and then you get
Yeah,
it.
oh, all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, bro. That's what a great story. What a great way to end this. Coach, amazing, man. Beautiful stories, beautiful lessons throughout. Deeply appreciative of your time, bro. Thank you for putting this aside. Thank you for sharing your stories and your wisdom. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. I had a great time. I said this before we started the episode, but I love doing this because as we and this is not just for me, but like as we express ourselves, as we share our stories, we learn a little bit about ourselves, and we also learn how to better communicate these stories.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I appreciate you for having me on here, man. And I hope that, your listeners were listening
Yeah.
and they got something out of this. And not just that they got something out of this, but that they'd be inspired to listen to that calling inside, to that voice that tells them, hey, start doing this, hey, start doing that.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I can do this too, because again, if I can have the life that I have, I believe anyone can have the life that they desire.
I agree, man. The key takeaway for me is one, listen to that damn calling, stop ignoring it. Two, start taking action for yourself and for your kids or your future kids, for your community, for everybody. Now's the day. Get to work.
Yep.
Yeah, love that, man. Real quick, let's promote where can people find you on social media? Where can they work with you?
Yeah. So all my social media handles are coach_Turby. And then you can go to turboturbyacademy.com, and there's a button on there to book a call. There's the email newsletter. I send out a email every week, and I'm experimenting with video on there because I prefer video over writing, honestly.
Yeah, you're good at it too, bro. You're very inspirational. Your voice, doesn't get captured in the writing. So if you can watch his videos, guys, if you're feeling lazy, you feeling like you don't want to go for a run, go watch a Coach Turby
Yep,
video.
there you go. So the easiest way to sign up for the email newsletter is just email.turboturbyacademy.com.
Right on. And you can send me all those. I'll link them in the description for this too. So yeah, if you guys watch this whole video and you're not going and booking a call with Coach Turby, I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, do it already, guys. Work with this guy. He's a gem. So right on, man. This was fantastic. Again, thank you so much for your time and all your wisdom. And I'll catch you on the next one, man. We'll do part 2 sometime down the road.
Let's do it. Let's
All
do
right.
it. Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this conversation, please hit the like button. If you want to watch more podcasts like this in the future, subscribe and hit the notification to be notified when they come up. If you want to keep up with me, I am on Twitter now every day at Write with a W already. Link to that will be in the description. If you want to check out my writing, I publish a newsletter every Friday through Substack. Link to that will also be in the description. I love you guys, and let's keep doing this together. Peace.